Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, a.k.a. the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week is something way different that we haven't done, and I'm going to have to thank Blake and Marco. They are from Disciples of Gaming in North Kansas City here, and this podcast is actually going to be in our normal format, and there's also a VR version that you can actually sit in the fifth seat of the M3 Podcast. I feel like that's pretty crazy. And technology has really elevated us to a whole new world, actually. So with all that, what led you guys into VR?
If you guys are watching this on the normal YouTube clip there and you have VR goggles, there is another YouTube upload that you can actually hop in virtual reality and sit right here with us on this couch and see us in 360 like you're in the room.
That's it. Go check it out.
Well, it started several years ago when the boys, my three sons, came to me and they wanted to game. And they were younger. And you want to be a good parent, right? So I'm like, no. Because I heard so many negative things about it. Well, over time, they whittled me down, and I agreed to bring it into the home and test it for a week. So we did 3 days of me testing it. They were like, hey, Daddy, can we play? I'm like, get away from me here. I'm testing this.
No, it's mine.
Was it VR gaming or what kind of gaming was it?
No, it was Xbox.
Okay.
Original Xbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I loved the technology, and I became a gamer. My name is War Chief. And the technology was phenomenal, and I was really impressed with it, and I wanted my boys to be able to partake in it. However, I didn't like the behavior of the people I was playing against. So I started a gaming community called Disciples of Gaming in 2006. We have a code of conduct. No cursing, no trash talking, no disrespect, no racism, so on and so forth. If they follow the code of conduct and perform certain tasks, they can rank up in the community. They start out as a recruit, then become a private, then corporal, lieutenant, on up to generals. At last count, we were at 7,500 members that I remember.
So what did that look like, Blake, from you and your brothers getting into? My dad was similar in the way that the only way we could play PlayStation or Xbox or anything like that was after the sun went down. If the sun was up, you were outside. After that, you were able to come inside and you could play, but then we'd stay up till as late as possible when we get up, and we're always tired. But what did it look like saying, hey, Dad, I'm getting into gaming, and getting to actually start doing that, and then saying, hey, like, my brother, which is not sitting on the couch, was phenomenal. And my dad's like, this is terrible. It took his Xbox away. And he was a top 5 Call of Duty player in the world. And he's like, now he looks back and he's like, I could got paid to do this stuff. And once again, the technology has blown up. What did that look like? What have you seen in the progression of the technology and gaming?
Well, I mean, back in the day, he was pretty lenient in terms of gaming. At one point, we all had our own Xboxes. So when Xbox Live kind of came out on the original Xbox, we started in Halo 2, and that's kind of where everything blew up and got to the 7,500 members, and it was international. We had guys in the United Kingdom that we were playing with, Australia, and so it was pretty neat to be able to sit in your room at a young age and then be able to play with somebody that's halfway across the country. And In terms of technology, I mean, VR is just light years ahead of what console gaming is.
So what was the format of that group like then? Because there was, I mean, maybe starting to be like some Facebook type groups or whatever, but where was your guys' community like centrally located?
Oh, all over the United States? Are you talking about located as far as physical?
Like online?
So we had groups of 100, and we had several of those. And I started realizing, or I started thinking, this is like 10 years ago, that gaming is going to VR. And it will be. It's not yet, though. And I discovered that 10 years ago. And the reason is it's too expensive to put a good competitive VR system in the home.
Piggybacking on what Logan was saying, when you started, where do all these people that are in Disciples of Gaming, are they housed in like a Facebook group? Are they housed in like through a platform? How do you get in to be a member of Disciples of Gaming?
So, I mean, back in Halo 2, going off what he said, I mean, it was kind of like a clan, if you will, when those were big. And we had groups of 100 because you can only have so many friends on Xbox Live.
Yeah.
But we created a forum, which we still have up today. So, I mean, you would just go online and somebody be like, oh, what's dog? Because we had all our clan tags as dog 1, 2, 3 on up. And then if that piqued their interest, we were kind of recruiting when we were playing with people online.
I was probably hopping in lobbies and there's a bunch of dogs in there that were just waxing me up and down. So when did you transition from console to VR?
Well, they're all still in console. The gaming just isn't there yet. And I was really discouraged. However, I ran into a guy by the name of Dr. Skip Rizzo, and he started showing me VR and how it helps with like mental health wellness and other things that help people. And that's when we started OmniLife. So that's a whole different ball game, education, fitness, mental health wellness, so on and so forth. And but the future of gaming is VR, and I kind of feel like I'm spilling the beans a little bit because like esports and stuff, they don't get it yet. And that's what helps me to believe in Disciples of Gaming, because we are going to be building communities, VR League that's, because in fact, I've gotten out of the console gaming because of the VR.
And we've been down at your guys' location a lot of times, and those VR games are fun. And I think they get more progressive and become better. And we were just discussing before the podcast even started about how much I feel the technology just recently has changed, where there's going to be a time where, and I don't think this is as far away as we probably imagine, that you just do a body scan and you're uploaded in and you're playing Call of Duty as yourself. That I walk in and like I go into a lobby and Blake is in the lobby standing there as himself, and you're going to play Call of Duty. I might totally be wrong.
There's already features like that right now where you can take a picture that you took with your phone, upload it to a website, and then it generates your avatar. So your face looks like you. And then when you import that into whatever game you're playing, it's you and your lookalike.
Oh, mine, I keep messing up on it, though. I look like a young John Wayne. So I left it like that.
So you started touching on OmniLife, and I think that is also a misconception that a lot of people have when they think VR. They only think gaming, which I think that is a vertical of it, but there is so much more to VR I didn't even know about. And the first time that we met, I'm sitting here, I'm like, hey, we're meeting with a VR place, and I'm thinking game. And then when we get there, we start talking OmniLife, and I'm like, what is OmniLife? And then you start going into depth of all of the benefits it has for people in different areas. I want to touch on what that looks like and what studies have been done and to really prove that in that space.
Well, it helps heal the brain, actually. We just finished a 2-year program with UMKC on concussion prevention through virtual reality training and concussion treatment through virtual reality therapy. And there's just something about it that just turns the lights on in the brain. It slows dementia. We have measurable proof that it slows dementia. We help people with anxiety, depression. We just got a very good report from one of our VR labs up in the VA hospital in Des Moines. And a gentleman who had suffered a stroke was not responding to normal therapy. They put him in the VR therapy and they started getting dramatic results. It just heals the brain and even helps with the eyesight, helps improve the prescription, and also slows macular degeneration. You know, it's who'd have thought, you know.
Well, I think it also that when we went up there, once again, we were talking about this before the podcast started. I figured we should have had the cameras rolling 30 minutes early. But we're talking about the difference between everyone has Oculus goggles now. And when I first thought of VR, when we first were going to meet, I'm thinking VR from like 5 years ago. I won this thing that you slid your phone into, and it looked terrible, blah, blah, blah. And then I get Oculus goggles. I'm like, holy cow, this has came so far. And then we get to your guys' location. We put on like high-end VR goggles, and it's 10 steps in front of the Oculus. That you guys have that deal where you walk out on the plank, and I am terrified of heights. And I wish somebody would have been able to check my heart rate there, because I don't know how something that you're standing on flat ground, you put those on and you walk out on something that it truly looks like you're standing over a building in New York. You're about to walk off the edge.
Mm-hmm. It really is incredible, too, for anyone that hasn't experienced it, because in that same experience, I don't want to give it away, but you can have the feeling of falling or flying around. There's another mode where you can put rocket boosters on your hand and fly around a city, and you really feel like you're moving. So I see how it's possible for someone who has suffered something like a stroke, or who, parts of their body aren't necessarily connecting the way they should with their brain. I see how it's very possible for that to restore that feeling and connection. It's incredible.
Well, helping people with trauma, you take them back to the event in virtual reality that caused the trauma time and time again, and that conditions them, and it helps a lot of people feel better. What we ultimately want to do is test people to see where they're vulnerable before they get into the field, put them in those vulnerabilities in virtual reality, therefore eliminating PTSD altogether.
So my thought process, once again, I'm terrified of heights. If I went and did that same thing all the time, I feel like that would eliminate that fear, or maybe make it less of a fear. That the first time I ever put on VR goggles were my little sister's. She got the Oculus ones. I'm saying after my original shitty phone ones that I got. But I put on these Oculus, and the second I put them on, it was like somebody jumping off of a cliff. And I'm like, whoa, taking those off. Like, I was like, no chance. But then your guys' like process leading into that, it really does have like a sense of motion that I don't know even how to explain it to somebody that hasn't done it.
It shows you how powerful the mind is. So I have a friend who flew in World War II. He was an ace. He flew in the Korean War. He was an ace, test pilot, everything, flown everything. And I put him in the Apollo 11 experience. And it's the graphics are phenomenal. But at the point where you're sitting in the capsule with Neil Armstrong and the capsule lifts off, he said he could feel the vibration of the spaceship lifting off. There's no vibration. But his mind, he knew that it was like lifting off.
Yeah.
And he could feel it. Isn't that amazing? I've had people say to me, how'd you get the floors to move like that?
So you work with, I think your guys' business model, I feel like a lot of times when we stop by there, that'd be just so cool to get to do that all day, every day. I don't feel like it feels like a job at all. And you're working with your 3 sons every day. They're all there. What has the progression of Disciples of Gaming, OmniLife, all at your location, what does that look like as a business? And when did you start that as an actual location for people to come use?
It kind of happened. We didn't plan it; just kind of happened. We had a full-blown retail location in there, and I set one station in there just to show people VR, because everybody was, this is 10 years ago, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's cute," but they just really didn't get it until you don't get it until you experience it, right? Mm-hmm. So we put the one station in there, and because of demand, we took all the retail and moved it to the back, and then built that area there. And then again, because of demand, we took all the retail out. Now we're getting ready to add more stations and make more room. And, so it's actually inch by inch, it's all became much more.
So what does the background look like, Blake, on getting all these systems set up one over another?
What do you mean by that?
I know it's probably pretty simple for you to do.
Yeah.
For a normal person.
What did that process look like for you? So you start off, you get Dad into doing some console gaming, and then he starts playing with VR, shows it to you, I assume. What does that kind of look like when you realize, okay, this is something that we can actually do as a business and kind of grow and do as a career?
So my background's like IT support and electronic repair. So we kind of did that before we kind of launched that first station. And we're getting people in that said, I don't want to do this I want to game in a sense. So that's when we started building that first Ford rig that we have. And then we had some other concepts where more people were like, I want to fit more than 4 people inside the headset. So we, like you said, we moved that retail further back and into our backspace, and then created that, what we call our frame in the back. So it's kind of portable to be able to also take out on location, because we've done offsite entertainment venues. Like you said, we set it up at the VA and as a therapeutic avenue for them. But in terms of technology, because I already had that background, it came pretty simple to me.
We go in, I'm like, we got Albert Einstein over here. He's just like building stuff, and Marco's like, yeah, you need to do this and this to the website. He's like, all right, Dad, got it done. It's already done. And moving 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Well, over 10 years too, we've made mistakes, but we've got the system pretty much dialed in now to where it's improving even. So eventually, I believe that every home will have a VR room, and I want our company to be the first VR company to create a VR room without a headset.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
What would something like that look like? Like, how does is it projectors in a room?
Well, there'd be basically 5 different technologies being used. The 2 bands of light I was explaining earlier, also infrared, robotics, and VR, AR. It's going to be a combination of things. Yeah, holograms. I always have a hard time coming up with the word hologram because I get it confused with another word. Yeah, but yeah, holograms are going to play a big part of it.
I always like when we did the VR, when we've been in that kind of space, the first thing that comes to me is Ready Player One, where they like suit up into something that is, I look at what 5 years of technology has done, and then I sit there and think about what 5 more years looks like. Mm-hmm. And it almost like, I'm looking at what's happening in like 6 to 12 right now with AI in today's space, with everything else. I think the market space is moving faster than most people have ever seen, and everything that we do. So moving forward, what are plans that you guys have on expansion, on getting VR to more people? I feel that like there's even the education side, that there's VR that's going into schools, that there's a lot of students that don't do well with teachers in certain schools, that there can be a VR option There can be a VR option for homeschooling, that you may have a parent that's really good at math and science, but they're not the best English teacher. Or they could be really good at English, and you may need that parent might need help teaching math and say, hey, you know what, you're going to do math in VR. Like, so what does that look like, expansion moving forward?
Well, absolutely. It's going to be in every school in the future. COVID helped bring that around. So in our classroom now, we can have up to 50 students in a classroom. And there's so many different things that can be done. Like they can be on planet Mars, and that planet Mars is to scale. I mean, you can get on a Land Rover and drive for days, come across different things and stuff. But yeah, the future of education, it will be in every school, and definitely homeschooling. 33% of the students today are homeschooled. I just found that out.
I didn't know the exact number on it, but my little sister's 13, and she just talked about all the kids that she knew in school that are now homeschooled. I'm like, I don't even feel like I knew somebody that was homeschooled at my age.
Yeah. Has that number gone up recently because of COVID?
Yeah, I think, and there's some parents that aren't really happy because they were able to see what was going on in education. Yeah. But I also believe it will also be in the public schools. So it'll be in every school. Kids need this. Kids want it. They flourish in it. Their grades go up. Their attention span goes up. It's amazing. But not just kids. It's for all ages. That's why I named it OmniLife. I'm really surprised at how the older people even, gravitate towards it and want to be a part of it. But for the future of education, absolutely.
I think there's different ways to navigate education, and I feel it's been done the same way for so long that a lot of people don't have interest in history. I went to the Auschwitz exhibit at Union Station. 2.5 hours. I mean, they had 200% of my attention. You put headphones in when you got there. You had this little phone looking deal that you navigated. You would stand in front of something, and then it would read, and it would tell you all about it. And I think something like that can be done in VR, where you can teach someone in a way that's not a boring teacher. That there's some teachers that I feel that's where certain students went to school and they excelled in certain subjects because they had teachers that were really good in those subjects that held their attention. Holding attention is the name of the game in marketing. It's the name of the game in school. Like, people's attention span's getting lower and lower. So then you expect some 8, 9, 10, 15-year-old, any child that has a hard time focusing on a minute TikTok that they're actually halfway interested in, to go into school and listen to a teacher for an hour that they have zero interest in. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like there's new forms of piecing that together that I was intrigued with space in school, but they never had my attention enough for me to care for it. But if you put it in VR where you're like, hey, you're going to go drive around a Land Rover on Mars, I'd be like, bet, can't wait for that class today. Yeah. Like, all of a sudden you just change the script on it. Mm-hmm. You can make it fun.
Gamify it.
Yeah. And you can make it to where somebody's learning something while they're enjoying it. I feel like the school structure has been so boring for so long, and it's just, well, that's how it's supposed to be.
Well, it hasn't changed in 100 years.
No. And not to mention just in the U.S. where we, are fortunate enough to have the school system that we do have, whether you think that it's right or wrong, there's parts of the world that don't have access or don't have the knowledge base to teach their youth. Mm-hmm. So I know you guys are doing some work in some other countries abroad to kind of help that education process, give them some technology. Talk about that a little bit for us.
Well, Pakistan is one of my favorites, and I'm very, very, very excited about what's going on there. We partnered with the university there, and our headsets come with 450 educational experiences that you do not need the internet. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, and some of these people have some type of persecution, not allowed to get an education. They can take this home without the internet and get educated. If they can hook up to the internet, like at the university, we have a lot of students there, they can go into the academy, and even kids from here can join with them, learn from them, have a conversation with them. It's pretty awesome. But what's going on in Pakistan and watching these people and how they're taking VR and how they're running with it is just amazing. So there's an OmniLife in Pakistan.
All right, we're going to hit a real quick intermission. If you get any value out of the M3 podcast, you enjoy what you're listening to, you enjoy what you're watching, we would really appreciate it if you shared, recommended to someone. That is how we find our growth. And we're trying to grow it to someone and bring as much value as we can to as many people as possible. So we would greatly appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. That's pretty big, going worldwide.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that can be used everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've sat in your office and talked for hours and hours and hours that the void in the space is huge. We talk about with the podcast, this is something that I haven't seen done. That somebody is sitting right there as our fifth guest getting to watch this with us. Like, I'm putting my VR goggles on this next week, and I'm going to sit in and I'm going to watch this from the outside. And then I'm going to have my takeaways, what we need to fix in the future. But there's so many. Think about a child could be homeschooled, and this could be set up in a classroom, and where they hold 50 students, there can be a 51. There can be one extra chair in every classroom that could be recorded and put out, and that kid could put on VR goggles and sit right there in that classroom, experience the exact same thing that everyone else is. And I think you fix a lot of, there is a problem in the U.S. right now that certain school districts have much better learning. Mm-hmm. Their level of teachers, the teachers that they have are a different level or a different skill set because they have a different access to more money. Think about somebody in the inner city now that could get the same education as somebody that's not. And you fix a lot of those, I think that bridge.
So we had a field trip from a school in the inner city, and they came down, and it was awesome to watch these kids to be in a physics class with Brian Greene, who was like one of the top physicists in the world, and the graphics and everything. It was amazing. And there was 13 different countries in that classroom represented.
That's pretty legit.
Yeah. So that's the future. You can get world-class educators. I'm not taking anything away from the public school system or anything. Teachers now, a lot of teachers that I know, they are all in. They're trying to make an impact.
But good teachers are going to be on with this. Mm-hmm. Bad teachers aren't. Yeah. I went to college where I had a lot of really good professors that today I will say are phenomenal. And there are some people there that should never get to teach a human being in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. That I don't know how they passed to whoever they had to pass to get in front of teaching another individual. But those classes are the ones that people hated. That I think that a student should be able to pick at any level that say, hey, I don't like that teacher. I'd rather take that class in VR.
Well, Dane, with COVID, you were mentioning having 50 people in the classroom. Just imagine there's 0 children, 0 students in the classroom, just the teacher and the camera. 50 students can join from home. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something to think about, because is there something like COVID coming back? Is it going to come around again? Is there something going to happen? Who knows? We never expected it in the first place, but why not be prepared this time?
Yeah, imagine if everyone would have already had access to that and we would have had that set up. It would have been just like, okay, flip the switch. This is something that we're all ready for.
Yeah. One of my dreams is to have it in every retirement center. Can you imagine? I knocked on all the retirement centers. I knocked on all their doors here and in Kansas City. And if they would have listened to me, and they were approaching it from a different, I wasn't approaching it right. It's my fault. I should have looked at it more like a business for them, how it's going to extend the lives of these people and their beds are going to be fuller longer. I was approaching it from, this is going to help your people, but they're more into business. But anyway, can you imagine if they had the VR in these retirement centers during COVID? You know how many people couldn't even see their families?
I didn't even think about that.
In VR, grandma and grandpa can participate in the grandkids' birthday party like they're there.
And imagine for older people who aren't able to move around as well, able to get in something like that and experience full movement and do what they want to do without, having pain.
Is there a way that if that is set up, this may be way over the top, that can run live feed to something?
You can set it up to run live feed.
You can set that up to like live feed. So this is something that I think a lot of people are running into in today's world, like something I'm currently running into also. When you have destination weddings and people can't come to them, they're talking about doing live feed on Facebook or something like that, but I don't feel like it seems the same. You do a destination wedding on a beach, and you have that sitting there as a chair in the front row, and then it's running live feed. Think about how many people then could be there.
Yeah, in our VR lab, you're going to appreciate this. And the one we had up in the VA hospital, the director there of the VR, it was amazing. People come up with great ideas and stuff. He took it out to his hunting stand so that the guys that are in the hospital beds could experience hunting. And he was out hunting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it works in so many like real life situations that you go to a retirement home figure out what those people did. You go through a retirement home, there's 60 people there, and half those guys were hunters. Every single week you're going to have them on the VR things watching whoever's hunting.
Yeah.
100% they are. They're like, I can barely walk, but I'm going to get on here. I'm going to watch this guy go shoot this deer.
Or they can go hunting themselves. I'm sorry.
Well, and we did go to a retirement home, and we took out our rig and stuff, and there was a lady that was 98, 99, somewhere in that range. She was the first World War II pilot as a woman, and we were able to take her back into the same plane that she flew in World War II and put her back into that cockpit at that age, and she just flourished and loved every minute of it.
Yeah,
so that's the type of things.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that somebody at that age never thought something like this would exist in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. That I remember as a kid, and I don't feel like that was that long ago. And I mean, probably 14 years ago, I remember watching like futuristic stuff that was talking about things like this. And now that it's here, we talk about how you're navigating new waters of educating people on this. I feel like we were educated on it so long that movies that were coming out, everything was like futuristic of like VR being something, and now it's here, and then it hasn't been really elevated to its top spot yet.
Oh, it's going to infiltrate every aspect of life. It's going to be for fitness, sports. There's no impact injuries. And the sports are very futuristic. And you guys know you get some exercise and stuff. So they need it in schools for that. But the sports and the competition and how you can do it globally. And, you can have 1 million viewers in with the players, and the players don't even know they're there. So this is the future of sports and entertainment. And as far as entertainment, movies, you'll be able to participate in your favorite movie through artificial intelligence manipulating the information. So you and your buddies can all be the favorite character in that movie, and then the decisions you make will change the outcome of the movie. And it will go back to movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever movie. It's the future. And every home that will be in your VR room. You'll go to the doctor. Your doctor will be just like us sitting here. And with those bands of light, he'll get your temperature, your heartbeat. He'll be able to diagnose illnesses. With robotics, he'll be able to perform different surgeries and stuff from location to location. Go grocery shopping. You'll be able to go clothing shopping. You'll have a cart. You'll go through the grocery store and and then you pay for it, and ding dong, somebody's delivering it.
I feel like some people kind of too think that, and maybe it's part of that education piece, but some people maybe think that that's going to separate or divide us or kind of prevent us from, experiencing life, I guess, in the real world or whatever. But I think it's actually going to bring us together, because like you said, it's going to give us access to experiences and people and communities and countries that it's just impossible to have that access to, 24/7 all the time in real life.
Yeah, I think you're right on target. Also, think about the people who can't get out, who are bedridden, who are, always wanted to climb Mount Everest. Now they can do it.
Yeah. He's grinning. I told him I'm going to do it in my lifetime. I think
you said by
I did say
30.
Yeah, I did say by 30.
Well, you do it in VR and it's not as cold.
Yeah.
No, we hiked up like a 6,000 foot mountain in South Dakota or something, and he's like,
so at this point,
I think I'm gonna hike at Everest by the time I'm 30.
So at this
I'm
point,
gonna start training when we get back.
So this point in MMG, so Dalton and I did a field camp in Spain, and we were in Spain for 6 weeks, and we hiked all day, every day.
They're geologists.
Yeah.
So they were mapping.
So we're out mapping in the mountains every single day, hiking, no issue whatsoever. We go hike in South Dakota. It's something I actually do enjoy. And I told him, I was like, I very much like overcoming the hardest things possible in life. And that's why I went out to open a company and scale a company and do it. I have very ambitious goals on what I do. I've always been successful in achieving those goals. So Everest was one of those things. I might have put too short of a time frame on it. There was at that point in Moss Marketing Group, we were pretty dialed in, and it wasn't like mass scalability wasn't like on the forefront. After I started figuring out how it worked a little bit better, I was like, okay, we actually really have something here. We can make it really big. So then my training for Everest was more into scaling a company.
But you can hop in VR.
Just an excuse.
You can hop in VR and do it immediately, which you're right. Yeah. That's super cool. I mean, even think about it. So think about if you're taking a trip somewhere and you want to make sure that you get the most out of your trip or whatever. Why not hop in VR, go walk around that city or country or place, wherever you're going to be, figure out, what's going on. It's going to be,
you have something there, because I'm about to fly to Cabo in April to go look at resorts to figure out which one we want to do our wedding at.
Exactly.
Now,
imagine if you can do it in VR.
Now think about if I could jump in there tonight when I went home and say, hey, let's go walk these resorts, put in VR goggles. I check out the whole entire resort in VR.
You could still charge for that service.
You charge the U.S. I would pay. If you told me that was $1,000 service for us to get on and pick our resort, it's going to cost $6 to $8 for us to go down there. So the resorts probably aren't really going to like that, but it would end up making it where the resorts that really stood at the top would actually have probably more weddings there, more events, because they stood out via VR. Mm-hmm. But I think you could actually leverage a lot of those things where how many people fly somewhere to go check something out first? That there's a whole nother vertical you could get into of showing people. I would do it tonight.
Well, we're already doing that with like college campuses.
You are?
So I think yesterday or a week ago, dorm room, to where you could walk the dorm rooms and see what the dorm rooms are like in that specific college.
Yeah.
So it's to scale to what that dorm room is.
Yeah, and so think about everyone that's going to check out universities at the end of high school. Mm-hmm. I went and looked at like 3, and I did too. I feel like that's a lot for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Now think about if I could go check out 15 of them in a day. I throw on my headset. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start off at Mizzou. I'm going to go check out Arkansas. I'm going to check out Northwest. I'm going to check out Iowa State. And I'm like, whoa, Iowa State, their cafeteria is legit. Like, their dorm rooms are way nicer. Like, then it gives universities even more of a sense of stepping up to be that, to have the nicest facilities, to sink more money into, to get people to come there. But I think that elevates everyone doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
Just opened up a whole nother door there.
For real. So what's your guys' plan? OmniLife is this collective, obviously, that you guys have taken already international. What's kind of the plan with that portion of it to take it, globally to scale?
Disciples of Gaming and OmniLife kind of blend together. So I call it the Trojan dog. All right, the Trojan horse. They took it into a community and infiltrated. Well, we do that with Disciples of Gaming. So we're offering affiliates where they can go into their community with Disciples of Gaming. Everybody's into the entertainment. But there's peak time and there's off-peak. And the off-peak is weekdays. Mm-hmm. Peak is nights and weekends. So with OmniLife, we're offering all these other revenue streams for education, fitness, mental health, wellness, so on and so forth. There's like 9 or 10 of them. And they infiltrate the community with all of the services. And that is also points of distribution for our hardware that we're building and also our software content, our software that we're also building. And that's one reason we went to Pakistan is we're training people how to be developers to develop content. Because in like your mobile phone apps, there might be 5,000 apps a day added, to the cell phones. Whereas in VR, there might be 5,000 total. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. VR is going to be the number one social media platform. I think that's one reason somebody advised Zuckerberg to get involved in VR, because it's going to be the social media platform. It's going to do to all the other social media platforms what Facebook did to MySpace.
Which it's something you touch on the content. Content is king in everything, mm-hmm. no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. And I really wish the space was more evolved right now, because I feel that in the marketing space, we're playing 20 steps ahead of the people that we're competing against. And I built out a full VR office. I built out everything where we had these boards. I was like, how cool we were in my basement when we were running in the basement, and we all have Oculus goggles on sitting in the basement. And I built out an office. I'm like, now think about this. We can take on meetings with people that are outside of Kansas City. We'll tell them to meet us at our office in here. And then when we do their content, we could put it up. I had like a big, huge TV in the room. And I'm like, it was connected to YouTube. And I'm like, we just have it right here. Or like we had one of our desktops that would you could mirror your desktop in the VR portal. I was like, oh, this is legit. I'm like, we'll have all of our meetings in there. Mm-hmm. But most of the people we deal with are not even close to, and especially in the Midwest, I feel like we're so far behind here mm-hmm. that I talked to like 3 people about VR and they're like, what? Yeah. And then it was like right around that same time, like we end up coming into conversation. I'm like, these dudes get it. I'm like, yeah.
Well, think about the cell phone business. So I got involved in the cell phone business in 80s, and there wasn't even such thing as a handheld phone.
It's like the size of this table.
Yeah, it was there was fully installed in the vehicle, and then somebody decided to take what was fully installed in the vehicle and put it in a suitcase, and we were selling those for like $4 or $5 grand. You know what the backup battery was? It was a car battery. So you can imagine how that was before the bag phones and before the handhelds. And you see over time how it changed. And only the rich people had it at first. And now you see people who don't even have a home have cell phones. Well, this is what's going to happen with VR. It's going to change to where I believe it's going to be in every home. So right now we're installing in some homes custom builds, and what's people that's probably going to get the most are the ones who have like home theater systems, and eventually it'll be in every home in every business. It's how people are going to conduct business. COVID exposed the opportunities that VR brings, so I would like to think that people now, they need to start thinking about, because if something else comes in, I think it will. I think something will. They be ready. When you can meet all over the world, and have everybody on the same platform and talking, and engaging like you're right there, that's the way to go, and that's the future, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it does that piece, and also think there's a big disconnect in business nationwide. That how easy it is to sit in a room and have a conversation with someone that's in New York. Mm-hmm. That we've worked with some corporate companies that I had to be on Zoom calls that there was 15, 20 people on every single week. And half of them, I'm like, I sit there and think about how much more productive it would have been if we were sitting in a conference room with a TV in a conference room or a board going over everything that they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Because they're going over like, okay, on this, if you go to this site and you go here and you go click here, they're going through 5 minutes of trying to get somewhere for us to all see something that was really a waste of time. I sit there and like at that time was when we started messing with VR. I'm like, what if everyone was just sitting at a conference table like normal, and like I'm sitting in my living room and somebody else is sitting in their office and whoever's sitting wherever, and we put these on, we're all sitting in a conference room, and now all of a sudden the person talking has the board and they're going over everything. I think there's a huge spot in business for that one piece. Mm-hmm. Where when we're having a discussion, we have a phone call, we only can accomplish so much on a phone call. We have to sit down and really start putting our heads together on like showing each other something on a computer, going into depth on something that I think the VR space is going to have a huge, huge hand in fixing that.
Well, it's much more affordable. Like last year alone, I went to Dubai 3 times, and talk about just the flight alone. When you can have a meeting in person and choose the platform, you can be on a beach or on Mars or in the jungle, and have IMAX size screens, and you can have 100 of them or 1,000 of them or whatever. It's much more affordable and a lot better than.
It's efficient.
Yeah. It's so stressful flying to a country on the other side of the world, just because of the flights and how everything's messed up, and every time I went, my luggage was lost, and then I've got jet lag. It's like whereas you can do it.
I think.
Oh, go for it.
With like phone calls and Zoom calls, the problem is you can be distracted by 50 other different things. But if you're in person or inside of a VR headset, your attention is grabbed because A, you're there, and B, you're socializing and things like that. And it's kind of hard to be occupied by 50 other different things because you're kind of occupied by this virtual space.
I'm waiting for a day that VR comes to a form where it's like held in glasses pretty much, where your glasses just start vibrating, you just pull them down, and then it's like, what's up? You're sitting in front of Blake here. We're having a conversation. Because I think right now, that is probably the biggest hindering point of VR is the size of the headset. That I think there is something in fitness with it, but if I put that on for that period of time to try to exercise, it'd probably be a little bit heavy. I think there's going to come a point where that gets fixed and it becomes smaller. It's just like TVs it used to be if you want a 75-inch TV. I remember moving one when I was in like 8th grade from my dad's bar, and it was the heaviest thing I've ever moved in my life. I'm like, this, and it was the coolest thing ever because we're getting that big of a TV at our house. Had all the bulbs in the back and everything.
Well, eventually nobody will have a headset. It will be where there's no headsets. But I've really never seen anybody complain about how heavy it is. I think one reason is because you're so into it. I've had people complain, like when they're doing archery, about their arms getting sore because they're holding them up.
I think your guys is a lighter version. I will say the Oculus is the way it rests on my face, it feels heavy. And I think you even said that there's a Pro out now, even a nicer version. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming is a lighter version. And they're probably going to come out with lighter and lighter and lighter versions. And there may be something where it comes out where just like they went from those monster TVs to plasma TVs. I remember this plasma TV that we hung up in my dad's living room that was way, way too much. And now you can go buy a 65-inch TV. I carry it up the stairs, bring it in here myself. I'm like, how do they make something so light now? Mm-hmm. But it's just the progression of it that I think the technology is going to come so fast, and they're going to be able to, what now is in this, and I'm speaking on Oculus. I don't know how, we were talking before this that the most expensive VR or the top line VR headset right now is what, $8,000
for the standalone.
Yeah, for the
which means
standalone.
not tethered.
Yeah. So I think that that's going to evolve with time, that I have something that can sit on my desk that rings just like a phone. I just put them on, and it's light enough that I don't have to have anything that supports it on my head. Anything, I'm like, what's up, Blake? And we're sitting in a room. Do you guys agree?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at going back to the phones, how big the phones were, and they were powered by car batteries. Now our phones have more technology, and they're smaller than what the rocket to the moon had.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, technology and computing power is just going to get smaller and smaller to where, I mean, you could just put a pair of glasses on, sunglasses, and it's going to look like you're there.
That's going to be a pretty cool day.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I see them looking kind of like a walnut shell that you place on your eye, because you don't want any light to come through. The only negative thing about that new Oculus is there's some light coming through, and for $50 you can buy something. But I eventually believe what it'll be is just like a walnut shell or an eggshell towards right there, and that's it. And
We're all going to look like the really old guys that wear those glasses with the black things all the way around.
but it'll be smaller and lighter, and through Wi-Fi it will be, you don't need a lot of the stuff that's needed now.
So do you think they'll get to where they all just have service on them like our phones do?
Eventually.
Because I feel like even when iPad started, they were like, iPad was cool, but now they've got to where like I have service on my iPad. I can go in anywhere. I can pull up whatever it is. And an iPad is 1,000 times more useful now than it was when they came out. Because at the beginning, it was like, oh, this is kind of like a drawing like tablet. And it was so your kids could watch something different than you on the couch. And now it progressed. And now they're like a business tool that they're like, people had an issue with pulling up internet on their laptops all the time. That's the only reason I have an iPad with service is when I go somewhere, it's like, not, hey, what's your Wi-Fi password? So I think it's that shift in, once again, convenience. And I think that having that to where I can be in the truck and I pull over and say, hey, I could pop my VR glasses on sitting in a parking lot at McDonald's and be in a conference room with people and have a 30-minute business meeting, take my glasses off, drive down the road, not skip a beat. So I think that is where the space goes to every single home, every single person that quick.
Well, one thing I'm really excited about is job training.
Yeah.
And not just job training, but how to drive a car or how to drive a truck or just
snowplow machine.
Yeah. Medical training. There's the future of job training is going to be used through VR. And one thing I've noticed, the companies that are starting to do that now, it's a draw. People want to come work somewhere where there's VR capabilities. And, like there's a company I know of right now that they train their employees through VR, and it's bringing in younger people who want to work in that environment. One of the things, the complaints that I hear from some employers is they can't find anybody who wants to work. We have no problem finding people who want to work with us, and we have a lot of volunteers that are willing to work. Just because it's amazing to me how everybody wants to be involved with this technology, want to be a part of it and be in it. So it's kind of exciting, just for job training alone. Can you imagine, let's say you have 100 pizza joints across the country and you're selling them, it's owned mostly by affiliates or franchisees. Well, now you got a whole bunch of different owners, a whole bunch of different managers who are making their pizza a little bit different. But in VR training, everybody's making that pizza the way that they're trained, from the beginning, so.
I think that becomes very cost efficient too, where I know Chick-fil-A, for instance, they have locations that they have near most Chick-fil-A's, which they build duplicate kitchens to train. Mm-hmm. That it would be much more cost efficient to have a couple VR setups where they can train somebody on everything that they need to do and say, hey, instead of you being in this duplicate kitchen for 2 weeks being trained, you're going to be in VR for X amount of weeks. And the other thing is, if you have 15 Chick-fil-A's in the area, all their kitchens are a little bit different, and their kitchens that they're duplicating are off of the location that they work at. Now all of a sudden you have a drop-down menu and you say this location is this setup. Click that one. They are trained in the exact kitchen that they're going to be working in. And you could do that for fast food places all over the country. Say, hey, this is an updated McDonald's that is the most current version that we're putting out. This is the kitchen they need to be trained in. This is what they all look like. Hey, this McDonald's this guy's starting at hasn't been updated in 20 years. It's going to be out of date. That kitchen looks different. Mm-hmm. Their operations look different. They need to be trained in this. You click, you have different versions for every different year. And then you click that one. That's what they're trained in. Mm-hmm. So I think that becomes very cost efficient. Of most of the time, that training is being done by the highest power that they have. Same problem in the automotive space. And I'm talking to a lot of individuals on something like this right now, is you hire a new salesperson. Normally one of the highest powers at the dealership making the most amount of money is training that person, taking time out of their day to train somebody on what a car deal even looks like. That could be done in VR. It could be done so much easier and so much more cost effective and be rolled out everywhere.
We've already seen some of this with like video modules and online training that companies have gone to for job training, but it's not the same. I mean, we all know that most people learn better, in person from humans, and it's hard to recreate that in a video module or an online quiz. But when you have the technology that we have with VR, that's recreating the actual experience. It's going to lead to better employees, lower training costs, and longer retention rates.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what also doesn't happen in VR? I just thought about this. Say I go sit through training with Mr. XYZ over here. He's going to train me about being in the car space.
Yeah.
About a minute and a half in, I'm like, this dude's boring. I'm going to see what's happening on Facebook. Yeah. I'm on Instagram.
Imagine just in school.
Yeah. Now, if I have a VR headset on and I'm going over this, I can't pick up my phone and look at it. I'm fully integrated in what's happening right in front of me. Mm-hmm. How much more effective is that training to me than something that realistically I was playing on my phone? I just heard it in the background.
You're right on target. When the kids, because of COVID, were doing Zoom, their attention, but in VR, they're 100%. Their grades go up. It's just everything is so much better. You're right on target.
Like right now, if I got in a Zoom call for a class, I'd probably be watching like The Walking Dead or something. It'd probably be, yeah. I'd probably get like 2 sets of headphones. I'd probably have like one pod that was connected from one set of headphones to my phone and one to the Zoom call. And I'd probably be like watching a movie during that.
Even think about it on this podcast. If someone's sitting here in VR with us, that's the only thing that they're doing. Mm-hmm. If they're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on their phone, they could be driving, walking, doing laundry, whatever, which, for some forms of entertainment, that's fine. Music, podcasts, people listen to it in the background. But for education, training, important stuff, it eliminates all distractions.
That is something I really haven't thought about until like right now. Mm-hmm. That it's amazing on how that eliminates that factor. Mm-hmm. That you could probably, educate kids better in VR than you could in real life. You could probably train someone better in VR than you could in real life.
Yeah.
Because you eliminate all that outside distraction. Yeah. And the phones are the key factor.
Yeah.
Like, even if you took my phone away and you were kind of boring, I'd like probably start feeling my fingers, like start doing something. In VR, you're going to be like, ceiling, floor, still hear this guy. Nothing else. Like,
when you look at like business meetings too, it's the same thing. When you get 5 to 10 minutes into a business meeting, you're like, how can I get out of this? You start playing games on your phone. But I mean, if you're in a business meeting and you're on Mars or in the jungle of Costa Rica or something, it's going to be a little harder to.
So I think when we're in those business meetings at their place and Blake has his computer, I think he's playing RuneScape or something.
Yeah, that's happened to me. I've turned off my mic, turned off my video, so that all they see is a picture of me. And then I'll hear, Marco, what do you think about that? And I'm like, oh, no.
We run a coaching call all the time. And like, I get that our coaching call's 10 o'clock on a Wednesday. People have other things that they're working on, but it's amazing how many times like we have all these people in the call and I'll call on someone in the back. What was the question? And I'm like, but some people are like fully engaged. Some people like, I hope people are just taking a little piece nugget out of it somewhere. That's the point of it. But it's also like they'll go watch it afterwards or watch it at a different time. But VR, that is something that when we were there, we were playing that Arrow game where we're shooting shit.
Alvin's Assassin.
Yeah. It was just like, of course, he does all the marketing, so he knows exactly what game I'm talking about. But it's like we were fully like 100% into that the whole entire time.
Yeah. So for me, it's really cool too to think about because most technology so far, all it's done is decrease people's attention span and attention to detail.
Yeah.
I see this as a technology that actually does the opposite. It will make people more attentive and focused on what they're actually doing.
So I'm going to make a VR prediction.
Okay.
Escape rooms are pretty popular. And everybody goes and, like I was just looking in Tulsa the other day and all of the, through Google and all of the escape rooms that are available. I believe in the future it's going to be VR escape rooms. And it's going to be much more affordable than changing out the rooms all the time. And the graphics and everything is, we've already got some phenomenal escape rooms where you go to escape from the pyramids or fight Medusa or, and there's just going to be more and more. So I think that the escape rooms out there, if they start thinking about VR, that's a way for them to go.
I definitely think it's something that I would like. I think activities that people can do as a group will grow. Mm-hmm. That I have friends that I went to school with that do not live here anymore. That the only interaction that you have with that person is a phone call. It'd be a lot cooler if, say, Logan moves to Florida and I'm still friends with Logan. We'd talk and we'd still have conversation often. But it'd be a lot cooler being like, hey, bro, let's jump in VR and go do escape room. Mm-hmm. Like now you're getting to do an activity with that person just like you would right here in town. Like, and I think that elevates how many people have friends that are all over the country or all over the world in different places where you can now do an activity with that person. Because a phone call is cool to catch up, different things like that. But you can be in an escape room, conversating with that person still. Like, that would be so cool to go catch up with someone being like, hey, let's jump in an escape room.
Or team building for companies who've got multiple locations in many cities and stuff. It's team building. You can have different escape, but not just escape rooms, sports, playing things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
Logan, or I think yesterday you were talking about you had a friend up in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think how cool it'd be. I don't know how long it's been since you've seen him, but
Yeah.
to jump into a headset and it looks like him, or he can be John Wayne or be whoever, but you have that social interaction and you can go to an escape room or fight orcs and dragons and trolls or do any of those things.
Yeah. It's really cool. So for anyone who's listening that hasn't experienced VR before. I know the question that people often ask is like, what's the learning curve with it for what you guys do or the games that you guys have at your location? What's that process look like when someone first starts it? Kind of walk us through what you guys do to kind of help someone get going with it.
So we make it pretty easy.
Because Blake, this one's on you, bro.
Because I think that's something that could prevent some people from, being like, oh yeah, that's something, that I want to do is, can I do that? The question, with, older people, especially, technology sometimes can be a bit of a pain point. How easy is it? I know the answer, but for everyone listening, how easy and simple is it for people to get going in it?
Well, I think, the majority of our clientele on the entertainment side is new people that have never tried it. And it's grandma and grandpa that are wanting to play with their grandchildren or do anything like that. So we have experiences that are beginner and easy for everybody to do, or we have some of our more advanced experience. But even the more advanced, we get older folks that don't like technology or don't like games that get into it and then end up doing it for the entire hour and love it. We make it pretty simple for whoever comes in. And like I said, most is people that haven't done it before or haven't even put a headset on. And the only thing they know is that little headset that you put the phone in 5-6
I feel like
years
that
ago.
I feel like that really messed up the VR space.
It did.
I think that actually put a bad taste in people's mouths because for the longest time, my dad came to me and he's like, I think I should get Chloe Oculus. And I'm like, I'd seen him advertised. I was like, don't even waste your money. And he's like, no. He's like, everyone's like wanting these right now. I was like, don't waste your money. I was like, remember that thing I got at the dealership? Like I said, I wanted it. I didn't even buy it. I was like, that thing sucked. I was like, don't waste your money. And then he's like, well, she wants it, so I'm going to get it. So he gets it. I'm like, you messed up, bro. And then I remember sitting in my dad's basement. I put it on. I was like, bro, I'm on a beach. I'm like, this looks so real. I'm like, this is so cool. But I was mind blown how far it came.
We had a guy come in, and he decided he wanted one installed, so we custom built in his home. And it caused so many problems between him and his wife. So we had to put a second one in so she could play too. and they play. They hooked up, and Elven Assassin, they hooked up with a couple in Japan, and they'll go 200 levels in a night. They put their sweats on, and they get into it, and really heavy into competition and stuff.
That's a good workout.
Yeah.
We were there for those people probably have some pretty intense shoulders on them.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing kind of happened to me with the phone headset. So I'd tried that back years ago and just like kind of, put it in the back of my mind and hadn't really thought about it. And then a buddy of mine was pretty into video games as well. He got the Oculus as well. And this was probably a couple of years ago. And he brought it over. He asked me if I wanted him to bring it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Whatever, you can bring it, like thinking we'll probably won't even touch it. So he's like, no, I want you to try this. So I put it on and the same experience. I'm like, whoa. And he puts me in the boxing game. And I sit here and I'm super competitive. And it's super, realistic at this point.
He was getting beat by like a 13-year-old all night long.
Yeah. Compared to what I had experienced, it was super realistic at the time. But my point is, whenever I got done with that, I literally had sweat through my entire shirt after like 30 minutes of doing VR boxing.
Yeah. I think the cool thing is it kind of puts you on a level playing field too, because we had an Olympic gold medalist boxer come in. He was a heavyweight and wanted to jump in our boxing experience. And I'm like, we can do it. I mean, I don't have boxing experience, but I do in VR. So we jump in and I kick his butt, and he's like, "Oh, I think I had something in my eye."
Yeah, he knocked him out. So we have some of the Chiefs players comes in, some of the starters. I don't know if I can mention their name, so I won't. So this one guy, he's very competitive, and he's like with his girlfriend, and I'm like right in front of him. I said to her, "Every time you knock him down, you get $10." And he's like, "Oh no, it's not happening." She knocked him down 3 times. It was great. And the funny thing is like the couples just really get into it. They're just beating the tar out of each other, and nobody gets hurt. But the women, when they knock the guy down, they all, for some reason, do the same thing. They stand over him and go, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the whole VR space in general is just, I think it's elevating. I think it's elevating very quickly. But like I said, I think that those phone things kind of gave it a bad rap for a little bit. And I think people do need to see what it looks like now. I think things like this are going to elevate so many just daily things that you do and change viewing at college, change education, change training, change podcasts, change all these different aspects of what we do every day are going to become more accessible, and I think realistically, like, hold a lot more attention to them also. Also, you guys are rolling out memberships to Disciples of Gaming, where people get 2 hours of playtime time in VR weekly, and that's normally how much?
It's like a $300 value.
So like $300 value, and it's $99 a month. So you can sign up, you can be a member at Disciples, you can go in weekly. Then do they do it? Are you guys doing a percentage off on additional time?
10% off.
10% off of all additional time. So I think it is something that is huge for people to get into, to go in. Like I said, it was a good workout for us when we went in and did it, just as if you want to do it as a nice little, I always look for activities I can do that are, I don't get my heart rate up, not just sitting somewhere eating, which I do too much of. But, and so how many different games and experiences do you guys have at location?
So currently we have close to over 100 different experiences in our open play. And then as far as our escape games, we're launching pretty much a new one every month. I think our newest one is going to be called The Prison that we're launching sometime this month. And I think we have close to 10 to 11 experiences in the escape game realm, which are really popular in the parties and corporate world, because we can get up to 6 people playing at once, but we usually have groups of 4 kind of going head to head and competing to see who gets the best time. So it's,
I like it.
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
So here's the good news. You know, when I started in VR and everything, and I've been pretty active and everything. Ever since I started in VR, I've lost 60 pounds. Not because of VR, just because I eat less.
Yeah. He's like, I can eat dinner in VR now. I didn't even add any extra calories. But I think this is super cool. I'm super excited to have a VR podcast out there that someone can sit in. I think this is something that's going to elevate the space and once again bring it into the future. I think everything you guys are doing is bringing everything into the future. Any final thoughts wrapping up?
I'm so excited about the entertainment side for the future, because I love like Western movies and stuff, you know, and one of my favorite is OK Corral Shootout with Burt Lancaster and Victor Mature and stuff, and I can't wait to be Doc Holliday, you know, and shoot wider.
If you could build this, I will tell you, I will take it to market, and I will get you more people than you've ever imagined. If you can build a VR Western saloon where people can go in and drink with their friends, you will own the space of people that are 60 years plus of age. I would go home at night, and my buddy that we watch Bonanza all the time, I would sit in a saloon with him and drink whiskey from my house at his house, and we could sit in an old Western saloon, and we would probably have like 15 other people that we hang out with all in there also. That I think that would be like the coolest thing, but everyone looks exactly like themselves in real life, and you sit in a Western saloon and have whiskeys with everyone.
Deal.
We can do it.
That might just complete my life. I might just live in VR if I can go back to the Western days. But I think that's going to wrap it up. We will drop all the links below, So I think that is going to wrap.
One more thing I want to say.
One more thing.
Blake is single.
Blake is single.
He's always doing that.
Blake is single. Any single ladies watching, hit him up. Once again, everything will be below. We greatly appreciate you guys coming on. Means a lot. And I think the VR space will continue to blow up. So
You're visionaries. You absolutely are.
you guys are even bigger visionaries than us. You guys actually make it a reality. Literally. So I'm going to say that's the end to the M3 podcast. We will see everyone next week. Thank you for joining. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.